Welcome to part two. We're joined by Jerry from Ireland with his Magnum tash and his mullet. I'll be clicking him into the circle of pork any second. Here we go. Here's Jezza. Women love him, men don't want to be him. How you doing, Jezza? Jerry, are you there? Earth calling, Jerry. Unmute yourself, Jerry. Are you there?
Oh, I had to press OK there. I didn't realize that. Sorry, mate.
No,
Apologies.
don't worry about it, Jez. Yeah, so, what do we know? We spoke there about Joshua in length.
Yeah.
Do you think his career, Jerry's been one big hype job? You know, when you look at his actual CV and body of work that Terry always goes on about, what is his body of work? Because it's littered with Povetkin's Pulevs and Vladimir pushing 42 and, life and deaths and with him and then a fat man Ruiz and then Usyk just took him apart. I mean, what were we sold?
Well, I understand the point that, of him being a hype job and very much believe that a large percentage of his career is based on hype. If he hadn't had the push in the way that he had, would we have been, seeing Anthony Joshua kind of, all those kind of media deals and different things that we've seen him involved in? Would we have seen any of that? Or would he have just been another guy who you might have occasionally heard about in the heavyweight ranks? But I will say that, if he was to have done his career different, who else would he have fought? Because the guys he's got down on his CV, most of those guys are the guys that were in the mix. Like, the only thing you could maybe argue is how come we didn't fight them when they were a little bit younger? Things like that. But Vladimir is a different story, really, because kind of one guy's coming to the end of his career anyway, so they weren't sort of in sync in terms of age. And you do have to say this. I give Vladimir Klitschko credit for nearly doing him in. Um, I know he got knocked out in the end, but he was doing pretty good in that fight. So you can say that perhaps Joshua strategically took on the guys who he should have taken on at later stages in his career, and therefore they were a little bit softer and easier victories for him. I don't really know how to kind of. I don't really know other than that how else I would frame who he should have fought and when he should have fought them. Do you know what I mean? Um, but I mean, essentially, like I said at the beginning there, he was picked up by Eddie Hearn and then, used as a poster boy and sold to everybody as this Olympian, even though there's questions over some of the things that happened during that part of his career. And, you know, he essentially was pushed in a campaign to get everybody who wasn't necessarily into boxing, but to get everybody to know who this guy was. You know, young, decent looking fella, well built, tall, all these kind of aspects, and then sold as a poster boy. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, if you had to ask me outright, was he a hype job? I would have to say he was a hype job, but I wouldn't take absolutely everything away from him, and say that his CV is way better, I think, than some other people's. Uh, I think it's actually better than Fury's, even if it was a bunch of old men. Do you know what I mean?
Who's got the better CV, Fury or Joshua, Jerry?
I have to say, Joshua,
Yeah, it's more in depth in it.
more in depth, and I mean, I'm actually going to have to work this out. How many top 10 opponents did Tyson Fury fight?
Not many. He only had one
Not,
mandatory, didn't he, Dylan White?
not many, and that's mind blowing. yeah, that's mind blowing.
Okay.
Like,
Do you know the weight of George Foreman when he beat Fraser was 15 and a half stone? Do you think, I've asked lads on commission this, I wanted your opinion. Do you think that 15, 16 should be about right, the cut-off point, and anything heavier, there's people are just being stupid?
yeah, yeah. I've kind of spoke to some of the guys in the commission about this as well. And basically, I mean, I can't pinpoint it exactly, but from we'll say the late 90s into the 2000s, this crazy trend of super heavy guys. I always think of like the Shagayevs and the Sultan Ibrahimovs and those type of guys. And, they all just seem really fat and, you know, like heavy unnecessarily. So. So it's changed the game because this kind of trend happened. And it seemed like there was almost some kind of scouting expedition going on for any guy you see over 6'5" or 6'4", get him down the boxing gym. Doesn't matter if he's got good balance or anything. We can turn him into a champion. This kind of mentality, all because there was some guys who were obviously larger than what used to be the norm, who just happened to be exceptionally good, and that was Vladimir and Vitali, and to some extent, you could say maybe Lennox Lewis as well. And I'm talking about size. Obviously, he was exceptional. So that trend basically started, and then I just think the weight thing just got out of hand, and it's best part of 25 years that has become a thing. I was hoping with Usyk, flying the flag as he has done, I was hoping that might reverse the trend. And I'll tell you something about maybe a sign of that. Moses Tama, you know what I mean? Also the way he fights, he's a lot quicker. He's got the feet work, the feet movement. And I was hoping, is this going to be the start of things now where people start to realize the optimum weight is between, um, you know, 15 and 16 stone, you know what I mean? 16 and a half stone max. Um, I really hope so, but I'll not hold my breath. But I do think that the quality of boxing was better when heavyweights were more that size.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think so. They're like, I mean, well, Fraser, when he won belt,
Was he
when he
210 or
first
something?
won the belt, he were 205 pounds, which is 14 stone 9.
Well, you know what I mean? That's
Could you imagine
amazing.
Derek Chisora being that? He might be able to do the bob and weave thing that Joe Fraser does, but Derek can't seem to master it, probably because he's got another 4 stone on him, because it's same height as Fraser, isn't he?
Yeah, brilliantly put, mate.
Carrying too much weight. It's
Um,
like I've told Max. I've said, Max, look, 20 stone's no good. That's why Dennis couldn't match him, because you put him in the ring and he can't get out of the way at punches. You might be punching a little bit harder, but you're sacrificing a lot. You're there to be it when you're 20 stone, aren't you?
yeah, yeah. I mean, you're
Fury
just
can't get about the ring like he used to.
no,
And he's there to be it. Now, he hadn't adapted like Muhammad Ali did to his second career. Foreman adapted, didn't he? Because they're both
yeah,
Olympians. Joshua's not adapted. He's tried, hasn't he?
yeah, he's tried, yeah.
So that's why I think Joshua's hanging on for dear life at the moment, and they daren't put him near anybody. I think Liam could be right. If it is anybody, it's going to have to be a guaranteed win that's going to sell. So could you imagine the fake beef they create with Dylan White?
Yeah,
There'd have to be some script written, want there, to create a bit of fake beef there. It'd be a 2 fight deal for starters, right? Like the Crusher Ben one and Eubank. And it'd just milking it and milking it. And then they probably might get the Fury fight down the line if they're lucky. They can always dream about it, can't they? Because we'd buy into that if they were 40, wouldn't we?
of course, of course.
Because we did
Uh,
Floyd Mayweather and Manning when it went 8, 9 year too far, didn't it?
yeah, and to be fair, I wasn't really terribly interested in that fight either
Yeah.
at the
What
time.
What do you think, Jerry, about the current call outs and tete-a-tete between Jake Paul and Big Meech? What do you think about it?
Um, More pantomime bullshit that I'm not interested in. I actually can't believe it because you know, would he would he really step in the ring with Anthony Joshua? All he's doing is just trying to draw more attention to himself. Because there's nothing really bubbling at the minute. So this will probably go on for a period of time, and then he'll end up fighting some nobody again or some has been again, um, and then stick it on um, Netflix and sell it for millions to
Yeah,
all the unsuspecting people. Um, so it's laughable, is what I think about it, Russ.
it's laughable something, isn't it? Laughable luncheon meat.
it's
How do you think
it's
George Foreman are the coach with Derek Chisora, Dylan White, AJ, Fury, and Wilder?
probably would have punched holes in most of them. I don't think you know people think he was slow. He wasn't slow. He was a lot quicker than Joe Joyce was. Um, you know, he could get around the ring like in his early career,
He cut
and
that ring off quick, wouldn't
yeah, he could really just when he extended out his jab because his jab was kind of underrated, like, but it seemed like it could just get you from anywhere. Um, you know what I mean? So he would have punched holes in some of those guys. I mean, somebody could maybe create some kind of silly argument that well, it would have been 50-50 with Wilder because of him being a puncher. The guy couldn't box. At least George Foreman could box. Do you know what I mean? And people didn't really sort of give George Foreman credit for his boxing ability, but that's in comparison to say George Foreman not having the greatest boxing ability compared to some of the guys of his era. His boxing ability is 5,000 times better than something that you've got from Deontay Wilder, who just couldn't box. He was terrible.
he? Yeah,
So, yeah, he destroys those guys that you mentioned
yeah. Oh, it runs over him, doesn't it?
pretty much, Russ, pretty
It
much.
runs over. I mean, I think it even probably it'd be a very dangerous fight. Usyk peak against Foreman peak, but could you imagine that for a fight?
I could. So, someone briefly mentioned this in the commission guys, and I would not write off. I hope this doesn't seem laughable. If a mover beat George Foreman, in fact, he wasn't even in his prime for movement. I'm talking about Ali. But if a guy like that can beat Foreman, obviously there was all the other extra conditions such as the heat and stuff. I give a man whose movement's just scientifically off the chart. I give him a
Yeah.
shout. I give him a shout. I don't
Well,
say
you
he
give
beats him.
Foreman a shout against Usyk.
I give either guy I give a chance to.
Yeah, yeah. You know, when you look back in history, you
Yeah,
know your Usyks and your Ali's. Well, we look back on we about Muhammad Ali being the greatest heavyweight, don't we? But I
yeah.
think if Usyk runs over the bar and then has another 3 or 4 wins, I think he's top five, me.
It's really, really difficult to separate, um, the greatest and whatnot, and like top 10, top 20 guys, you
Yeah,
know. So, and everybody's got their own kind of view on it. And if you do it purely on metrics of, you know, defenses, how long the reigns are, those type of things, it can bring up some results that sometimes aren't necessarily what people's favorite sort of list is. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
But Usyk, people will criticize the shortness of his resume, but that's almost part of the achievement. Is in so he's like getting into a car and putting your foot straight down and getting to fifth gear in a very short space of time. That's how I almost see it, because he pretty much cleaned up a cruiserweight in quite a short space of time, then gets the heavyweight, and then faced the main guys, the guys that he needed to prove himself against twice each, and excels to the top in that short space of time.
Yeah.
That is, no one will ever do that for, I don't know. It won't be seen again. How he's done it won't be seen again, in my
Well,
opinion.
Usyk, you mean, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, his CV's exceptional, isn't it?
Yeah, there's no duds. There's no duds, really.
No, I'm on about even amateur. Amateurs won European World Olympic gold, WBSS gold. He'd done Joyce over 5 rounds, didn't he, in final?
Yeah.
Cruiserweight undisputed, heavyweight undisputed. 335 and 15 as an amateur. Rematched 11. He didn't get to rematch Sean Porter, so he slipped through the net as amateur. But then look at amateur. What is sorry, at professional? Is he 23 an hour or something?
Yeah.
He's sitting at the top of the tree and beating guys 6 inch bigger than him and longer reach and freestyle. Have you?
It's overcoming a lot of
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah,
advantages.
yeah, and don't forget the traumas he'll go through going and getting it by these lumps.
Yeah.
He'll have miles on clock as well. He's got a good poker face, though, hasn't
Usyk, yeah.
he?
That's why I think he's smart enough to still, he can, if he plays his cards right and he's clever, I think he can get another couple of victories, but he doesn't want to push the envelope too much.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from. Yeah, he's a top-notch guy, Usyk, isn't he? And is he going to get Parker next, or is it going to be Dubois? It's all a bit messy, isn't it?
I didn't want him to get Dubois because I don't think Dubois deserves it,
I
but
don't. I think he should fight
I
Parker.
I understand why he. It's the talk. It's the talk of everyone. He wants to silence the people who are saying low blow that, low blow this, and now that he's got that belt that he was given Dubois, I think he just wants to um, lick the envelope and seal it, and then post it. You know what I mean? He just wants to finish it off, and he would finish it off. But technically, it's just one of those things. It's like, what does the Hatman always says? No stone unturned. It's just one of those things. If he doesn't do that, everyone's gonna go, oh well, he didn't rematch Dubois. Not that he fucking has to, like, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. You want to go on to part 3, Jerry?
Yes, no worries, mate. I'll remember to
Cheers,
hit
mate.
okay.
Cheers. Thanks for liking and subscribing and leaving a comment. We'll see you on part 3 in just a second. Pop, pop, bang.